Welcome, crypto enthusiasts, to the Independent Reserve Podcast.
Episode 15 with Ben Ritchie.
Wow.
we're making history here. Actually, Speaking of making history, today we're meeting where Bitcoin is touching new all-time highs. Speaking of making history, so what do you think about that,
Mate? It's all happening. Obviously, Trump being elected the 5th of November has really pushed it to all-time highs, and I think the force of the US behind Bitcoin and behind crypto is pretty exciting. The news overnight is that Trump may be having his own dedicated cryptocurrency person in the cabinet.
It's incredible.
Which is huge news. And obviously he's made a lot of commitments towards having Bitcoin founded and owned by America. Big claims, increasing the reserve, 1 million Bitcoin, so 200,000 a year over 5 years. There's some pretty exciting things that he's pushing. Look, I'm excited to see if it comes through, because Trump's first term, I think, was a test. I think he wasn't prepared for what he was getting into.
Yeah.
Shook the system a bit, but I think now he's come back with a team that can potentially execute. Which I think is the exciting part about it all.
It's incredible, isn't it? So Ben, I have to do a quick introduction from you.
Yep.
You're well known in the crypto space, definitely well known in your native Perth. Which has got a great crypto scene, actually, which I found out a lot about in Singapore when we were there at your event. There's lots happening in Perth, which we'll come back to. So a lot of your work now, you do a lot of work, actually, Alpha Node, which is an advisory business really in the digital asset space, but also digital capital management, which is a fund which allows access to high net wealth and superannuation funds. So how does it feel for you? I guess you've got deep expertise in this area. You're well known, I guess you work with Bamboo as well, which is a well known Australian brand. Before that, I guess you'd been big in the fitness space, but you'd moved into the digital space. So like everyone else, you had a life before the digital assets and crypto. But I guess for you, when you first moved into crypto and now we're getting mainstream, it feels like we're getting mainstream acceptance of Bitcoin and crypto. Look, I mean, we just talked about the US potentially having a strategic reserve of Bitcoin, which is just insane. But for you personally, how does it feel to have come full circle now? People are going, oh, actually, you weren't crazy. You actually had some foresight, and wow, tell me more.
Well, let's wait and see, because I think I've gone through a few bull cycles now, and I think you're always excited through these stages, and people come out of the woodwork. But there's those bear markets where things change. So, look, I think with any good tech that we've seen over the years, Amazon, Google, Facebook, all these tech stocks, they've gone up and they've come back. They've had retracements of 60, 70%. It's typical. And I think every time Bitcoin or crypto has those pullbacks, everybody thinks it's a bubble bursting. And they want to tell you so. So I think, over time, and it probably goes back to, I hear so many stories about people, how did you get into crypto? And everybody's stories are different. And to be honest, they don't really matter, because there's a consistent theme, is that information is slowly growing in the sector, and you've got access to different information. And when you first might hear about it, there's not the information that you need in order to understand it and digest it and understand what disruption it's going to have on the future. And I think as time goes, we're seeing the adoption cycle increase, and I think now with the ETFs, the big players involved, people like Michael Saylor just announced yesterday he's going to speak with the Microsoft board to see if he can convince them that their treasury should have Bitcoin. He's going to try and take the volatility out of Microsoft stock. So all these sorts of things are interesting. We've got a groundswell. I'm excited to see where this cycle goes. We're cautiously kind of thinking, is it another sort of consistent 4-year cycle? But at the same time, with Trump going in, and then potentially, if there's no Democrats on the other side and they keep pushing for another 4 or 8 years with JD Vance, we could be coming into a super cycle of fruitful times, not only for crypto, but I think for business and pro-business and looking to cut a lot of the red tape that exists in government, strip it back, which I think is what a lot of people in crypto and, fundamentally, that's where they've come to. They've been frustrated for so many years by the bullshit that goes on in government and the wasted money. And I think they're looking for something alternative. And really crypto's a hedge against quantitative easing. It's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against the existing financial markets.
Yep.
And that's really what's exciting for me. Look, I had a previous life. My background's chartered accounting, and so I was ex-Deloitte. Went through the accounting world, and came across it and these sorts of digital asset kind of concepts back then.
Yep.
But it really sort of hit home for me in 2017, getting that groundswell and seeing what was actually possible here. Particularly around the listing of tokens, like the ICO boom. I thought that was really exciting. Having been involved in a listed company previously and seen the red tape that it takes and the costs to get a company listed on the ASX versus something that was a token and a concept that still had network effect and broad appeal that could get technology up and going pretty quickly. That was what excited me, and I think I'm keen for the ride. I think it's too many people think of cryptocurrency as a sprint. It's a marathon. We're at the start of the marathon, and I feel the day that Trump got elected, we're at the start. Yeah. And it's super exciting.
It is super exciting. Actually, my first question was going to be what got you into it, but you've already answered that. So I guess you've been around now a while in the space, and you've been heavily active in the space through investment and advisory work. Like, every cycle we see changes, we see new players coming on, we see an evolution of the space as people take the technology and adapt it to various different, areas. How would you sort of describe, what you've seen, or the biggest changes you've seen, at least like in crypto generally, but more specifically, say in the Australian market?
Yeah, it's probably the maturity. Like I look at regulations. And regulations are coming in. I think the industry really wants these regulations, and they're pro, and they're struggling to put a framework around the regulations at the moment. ASIC's talking about putting this digital asset facility license, which is around custody of assets, but I think it's not far enough because I'm a responsible manager on 2 AFSLs, been in the space for a while, understand the ASIC requirements around running an AFSL. I think the industry's in for a bit of a culture shock. And I think what we're seeing is there'll be still fringe operators that are still talking about, crypto to the moon, get 1,000% return on this stock, and really drawing those risk takers in for the wrong reasons and not explaining the challenges. But I think as well, the government has a lot to be answered for when they talk about scams in the industry. They keep blaming the industry, but I think there's a real fundamental problem with the way the government's moved to react in time to assist consumers to understand the sector. So, for example, a stockbroker looks after their clients with stocks. That client comes to them and says, I want to buy crypto. Their AFSL doesn't have it on as an authorised product. They can't get insurance for it. And so straight away, they're getting turned away. So the broker's saying, sorry, I can't help you. The client wants to invest in crypto, sees a place for it in their portfolio, has to go and do their own research, goes down the wrong rabbit holes and ends up in the hands of the wrong people. And I think, too often government points and banks as well point the finger at the industry, but I think the lack of regulation and the slowness of their moving is actually the cause of a lot of the scams. So, as far as evolution of the sector goes, I think that's a big one for me. That maturity, and we always talked when we started in 2017. We started our first fund. And we thought, what's the thesis here? Where do we see cryptocurrency going? And at the time we thought, well, Bitcoin could get similar size to gold, which at the time was 7 trillion. And that's about 350,000 a coin, right? Which actually seemed, quite surreal at the time. And I think now we're at 1.8 trillion in size.
Doesn't quite seem so ludicrous
anymore.
We're
not far off. And you listen to Michael Saylor, and his vision is far more bullish than what we ever thought. But I think the industry's certainly evolved, and it's nice to see that wave coming, that institutional adoption coming, because if it goes in a 60-40 portfolio, if it becomes a part of every indice, broad asset basket. It's got a lot of way to go, and a lot of fund flow in. But I think it's about us as an industry still building compliant products that are attractive. And I think the ETFs are one, but I think we've still got a long way to go.
Yep, no, absolutely. And you mentioned sort of scams and the education piece, and it's very easy to sort of point. I mean, the reality is for a lot of scams, crypto tends to be the last mile. It doesn't start there. There's actually a lot of moving parts. It actually often starts with social media. For example, someone's been reached out to via, it could be anything. It could be Facebook, or it could be Instagram, or it could be. In fact, I got a great story which I tell at a few of my talks about the time I saw on LinkedIn. I saw a post and it looked legit, and I was like, "Well, hang on a second," and they'll say that they're not just trading crypto; they're trading. They want to trade FX, or they'll trade stocks, and they'll do crypto, and it's this kind of thing. So it's actually an investment scam. But it's just that last mile. So so you can't really point the finger. Do you point the finger at the social media company? What about the telcos with the texts, or the banks for like processing, or the crypto for being like involved somehow as a way to make payment? That's to really capture that stuff. I think or the government for having a lack of regulation or lacking initiative to put some safeguards around. We're going, hey, here's the licensing regime. So we can certify people who we know are going to be good actors and safe in space because they meet a certain standard of operation. So it would be great just if, from my personal opinion, to go, well, instead of potentially pointing the finger at anyone, going, well, how about we all just get together, and then if we create it's just create a bigger safety net for potentially vulnerable people by all working together. And hopefully that working together piece with the banks and the exchanges and the governments and everyone comes together over this next cycle as we get greater acceptance and greater realization. I think there tends to be this view amongst certain people, like it's definitely diminishing, that like crypto is just a thing that's not going to be around, so we don't have to bother at it. We can kind of marginalize it for a bit of time. I guess maybe Trump's election could be a turning point, but there's this seems to be, at least for the time being, a broader acceptance that this thing is it's real, it's happening, it can't be ignored. Let's all get together and kind of sort our shit out.
Well, I think Bitcoin is going to keep producing block after block. It's out the bag, you can't stop it. And I use Bamboo as an example. We believe that Bamboo, well, firstly, Bamboo struggled to get any social media accounts for years. Oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, maybe for those who aren't familiar, give a rundown of what Bamboo is.
Yeah, sure. Bamboo is simply the dollar cost averaging made easy for the consumer. It's the guardrails up. It's designed for your mum, your dad, somebody who's got no idea about crypto. It's not complicated. There's no order books in there. It's simply a buy of Bitcoin, Ethereum, digital gold, digital silver, and we've got USDC in there now as a stable. So there's only 5 assets in there. It's really simple, but most people use it for roundups. So buying a cup of coffee rounds it up to the nearest dollar, and that accumulates and puts it into a portfolio of their choosing. We work with Independent Reserve as our liquidity provider on that as well, and have done for years. And it's just simple. I've got my kids investing their pocket money in there.
They're going to thank you.
From a broad perspective, we've been doing $100 a fortnight for the last 5 years.
Yeah,
they've got over $50,000 now.
That's incredible,
right? And that's just dollar cost averaging. And they've bought Bitcoin at the highs and they've bought Bitcoin at the lows. But it's just this consistent approach, over a long time. And they say, "Oh, Dad, can we, My eldest is at 15, a couple of years away from a car.
Oh,
it's
right.
like, can I get it for the car? I said, no. No, you can get it when you understand compound interest.
Yeah.
Right? When you understand that flow and know the difference between an asset and a liability. So they've already got that a car's a liability, So we're doing that education around it. But that's what Bamboo is. It's just made simple. It's investment made simple for exposure to the crypto sector.
Yep.
And so we were really struggling with getting advertising, social media, Google, the works, and we took it on our own. Back when you talk about podcasts reaching milestones, the Crypto Curious podcast is up for an award tonight.
Oh, let's go.
It is, I think, about 170, 180 episodes deep now.
There we go. There's a goal for us.
Number of years, and so they're up for the Education Award, Best Educator of the Year. And it's tough doing a podcast consistently for that long, but we thought it's a channel we can control. So if we invest in this, it's something that it can't get turned off on us. And it's also under the guise of of others in terms of promoting as well. You get little snippets out there, and it's done well. But we also believe that we're being shadow banned by Google and potentially Facebook and the like, which effectively means your post is up there, but it doesn't get into the algorithm to get traction. And the reason why we suspect that is we've got a marketing consultant that works over both us and another micro savings app, which is more traditional assets, and similar posts get like 10x reach on the other side. And so, this is what we're constantly up against. Needless to say, the debanking is a fascinating topic, I think, on this industry. Maybe we'll touch on that later. Mm-hmm. But, startups in the sector, they've faced some really serious headwinds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're continuously breaking barriers and making it easy for the next generation as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the debanking one I know is a perennial sort of issue, and it's a tough one because so much of it I still think comes back to it. It's not necessarily the banks going, hey, we don't like you, we don't want to do it, but like there's still fundamentally a misunderstanding and an education gap between what the industry is trying to achieve and what it's about, as opposed to how it's still somewhat perceived, I guess, in sort of mainstream views. Yeah. But that's changing because of the work that a lot of people like yourself are doing, which is great.
Probably on the debanking, I'll share a story with you because I think it shows how extreme the debanking is. We operate an AFSL, trustee business. This was 2021. We had about 20 accounts with Macquarie. And of those 20 accounts, there was only a couple that were crypto related. And one is a very prominent crypto fund, which wanted an FX account and approached Macquarie's FX arm. And they said, "Hi, you're banking with Macquarie. We've got to tell them that you're Bitcoin." We already told them that was the case. We disclosed everything, but they put it through a different channel. Next thing, not only is their account closed, but all our property, our global securities, VC funds, the works were all shut. And we're operating an AFSL, and they're all TradFi businesses as well. And so the works was shut down, but the funny thing was the bank account was closed, but the FX arm still opened the FX account for them. Yeah. So it's like the left hand wasn't talking to the right.
Yeah, right.
We were given 7 days to move 21 bank accounts. We threatened APRA, which is every sort of lodgement is $2,000, so it was going to be $42,000. They gave us an extra 2 weeks, so we had 3 weeks to move banks.
Yeah, it's tough.
We're with a bank that has worked really closely with them, had a great relationship, and they understand what we do. They're a big four, and we haven't had any hiccups since. But it just goes to show the extremes, right?
Yeah, and what do you think it is? I mean, like for example, Bitcoin, people are now starting to get. It's kind of like some of it's investable properties. They're sort of non-correlated thing. It's outside of the system. It's a hedge or it's digital gold or whatever it is. But there's with the ETFs have obviously been a game changer with that. But it's a legitimate legitimate investment now. I think most people would agree with that. And it's a bit like saying, let's say, for example, you wanted to buy commodities. So you wanted to buy gold or you wanted to buy something like that. And someone said, you can't have a bank account because we don't want you to go off to be buying this thing. It just seems absurd that we would kind of debank people. But that's the reality. It's going, well, if you want to buy Bitcoin, that's just, we just can't be associated with that. It seems odd, right? And I'm sure in history, in hindsight, eventually people will be like, they debanked you because you wanted to buy Bitcoin. That's crazy, right?
It's still happening.
It's still happening.
I had a case just 2 weeks ago. We've got an investor for $2 million US into our fund, and his bank said, no, we won't let you transfer it. He's like, it's my money. I'm going to a licensed provider. They hold AFSL, that they're doing everything the right way. And he's since moved his money to a Hong Kong bank account, but he's got to go there in person to get it out. So it's probably going to take, by the time he gets, because he's travelling, but it might take 3 to 4 months for his money to get into our fund, which is lost return. It's opportunity cost for him, but it doesn't look good for anything.
Yeah, that's just incredible. I don't know what the magic answer is, and I think there are a lot of people, and that's a good thing. I know tonight, actually, there's the Blockies Award tonight. You're up for a few awards, which is great.
Bamboo's up for 2,
Independent Reserve's also up there. Fingers crossed, we'll see up there on the stage with some awards. And that's the industry, along with Steve Alice's group, obviously, Blockchain APAC. those guys have all worked really, really hard to bring together some cohesion within the industry and coordinate bodies and do some stuff. It's been it's been a hard grind. It feels like Groundhog's Day a lot of the time. Telling people the same story over and over and over and over and over, maybe over a few more times until eventually, but bit by bit, like the work that those groups are doing, not just them, but the groups overseas who are in similar bodies. It's the reason we are where we are. It's just people being willing to beat the drum for just, beat it up, beat their heads against the wall for years on years, and eventually they get a little bit of sunlight. And
I think on that as well, that's one of the beauties of the crypto industry, is whilst we're all we're all competitors in some way, we're looking at things in different angles. There's a real unity in the crypto community that if we expand the industry, it's going to benefit. All boats will rise. And
that's very true.
The ability to connect with somebody online and meet with them within a week, and they could be on the other side of the world, and get some valuable intel. Everyone's extremely willing to share. And these events like the Blockies tonight and Oz Crypto Conference, and there's a few other.
Oz Crypto, I haven't even talked about that yet. You're here for that?
Yeah, and you guys are putting on drinks on Friday night, and there's a few other events going around. And these events are invaluable for just sharing those little bits of knowledge that everybody gets to improve what they do and improve the professionalism of the industry and raise it. Because it's going to benefit everyone. Yeah.
Speaking of good events, the highlights. So Singapore. Last time I caught up with you was in Singapore for Token there.
Yep.
I think even though it was tucked away, the whiskey and cigar night was one of the highlights for me.
It was a good night.
It was a great night. You did over 2 nights, didn't you?
We did. We did the Monday and the Wednesday, and it was just intimate. Sort of 40, 45 people over 4 hours. Look, I love Token. Token 2049 is, to me, the best event in Southeast Asia. Go to it every year. This year I think there's 20,000 people, 700 plus side events. It's noisy. And if you don't go there with a plan, and I'm sick of going to events where you go into big rooms and you don't know who's in there, and you sort of fumble your way around introducing yourself to people. I'd prefer to have an intimate event. I invite a group, everyone else brings a few people along that I don't know, and you get more out of it. You get people that are more similar in your sort of sector and moving things forward, and you make great friends. You can have a better conversation over a glass of whiskey with somebody that's relatively kind of close to your circle, and you can move your businesses forward more than what you can going to a random event at Tel Aviv, which is, beautiful at the top of Marina Bay Sands. And that's what I've learnt from Token. I started going to Token in Hong Kong 2018, so I've been to a few.
Been to a few now.
And that's how I approach the conferences now.
Yeah, it's I always like to use a lot of those conferences, and it'll be interesting. I'll be looking forward to Oz CryptoCon this weekend. I've just seen from our guest list, the party we're having on Friday night, the guest list is people coming from Hong Kong. I've seen a lot of names I know there from Hong Kong and Dubai and Singapore, so we've got a good group of people rocking up for it. Singapore Token, which is probably, I think, probably still the largest and probably the best. I'd agree. They do it really well. Over the last few years that I've been going to it, I've noticed just the level of scale. Even though the event is kind of around the same side, I think we had 700 plus side events because, maybe the year or the year before, people kind of worked out that networking side, people are there to meet, people are there to network. And I just really wonder if there's any other conferences right now that can have the similar type of energy, because I know side events probably went from like 100 the year before to like 700.
Yeah, it was huge.
And it just got so messy. It just got so crazy. You couldn't catch up with people. That's what.
Well, I went to Dubai as well.
Yeah. Got rained out though.
Yeah, which was rained out. But the side events are a lot more stretched out. Like in Singapore, they're all quite close. And the pre-events and the post-events, I think the quality is a lot better. But it was rained out, so who knows what impact that has on things.
Yeah, we got caught. So it's crazy. We went to Dubai, and the biggest issue was floods.
Yeah, I know.
Right in the middle of the desert, we got caught. So we made. I'll tell you a story, because we got caught out. I was there with Lasanka and Ruben, one of our sales guys, heads up our sales team in Singapore. And we got completely caught with our pants down in a flood in Dubai. On the day of the rain, we saw some drizzle. Interesting factoid about Dubai is because it's in a desert, they don't have any storm water, like not a little bit, drains, they have none. their strategy for dealing with like water when it comes for 2 mils or whatever a year is to send out the trucks with the hoses and pump it up and tip it out in the desert. So when you get however many mils it was, but the thing was the storm itself was probably a good Sydney storm. It was probably not that much bigger than a good Sydney storm, but we don't notice it because we have good drain water here. But it went, and everyone's like, it must have rained for 40 days and 40 nights. It must have been biblical. It's like, no, it rained for about an hour.
Yeah.
And the water,
it just came down.
It went. So what happened? We stuffed up. So it's a pretty funny story though. We decided, well, we're going to get this rain. How bad can it be? Like, what we'll do is we'll go to the one of those top golf zone places, Top Golf or whatever, and we'll wait it out the storm by hitting golf balls and drinking a few beers, playing golf, and there was no taxis or whatever because it was raining. So we're just like, it's only like 2-3 kilometers. We'll just walk it. But the thing was, where the golf range was inside a golf club, and our Google Maps kind of showed us a way that was kind of like to the nearest point. But actually, the nearest point ended up being in a residential suburban area. So we got there just as the rain was about to hit, right? But we could see the Top Golf. It was from us to maybe the next room over. There was only a house in between, but it was a private residence, so we couldn't just storm through the person's house.
Yeah.
We asked the people there. We're like, how do we get there? And it was kind of some housekeepers, and they're like, well, this is private property. You need to walk around, but the walking around was like another 4 kilometers or something because we had to walk around this golf course. Like,
we could.
And as we got there, as we saw it, we're like, yes, we're here. We've avoided there, and that's when the rain came, and so we got stuck in this suburban area. And the rain, this is the thing, like everyone's like, oh, well, it must have rained forever. No, it went from no rain water on the ground to like waist deep in like 45 minutes.
Yep.
It came down, and we're like, well, we're stuck in the rain, and we have to travel back 4 kilometers through waist-high water back to our hotel.
Well, I wasn't so bad because I went to the pre-conference.
We stuffed up so bad,
and I had to take my shoes off, roll my pants up above my knees, walk on my tiptoes through water. To get to this conference, which was at the Grand Hyatt, and there was cars stranded.
Yeah, we walked past them. We were walking past them.
That you couldn't, you had to dodge. So it was a shame that happened at that time. Yeah. I think it impacted the event.
It did. But we couldn't get anywhere afterwards because there's all the low-lying levels of patches of water that could just stay there for days.
Yeah. But it's exciting what's happening in Dubai and Abu Dhabi with their licensing and VARA is pretty exciting. I think it's seen as a bit of a gateway now to Europe if you want to crack those markets. The thing for me, we looked at it and we've considered a license over there. It actually doesn't make sense for us. We're in the Australian market and sort of Southeast Asia. From reverse inquiry and that's enough for us. And the Dubai and Abu Dhabi licenses actually only cover you for those states, even though it's more a marketing tool to get into Europe. So it's interesting to see how that will evolve. Similar to Hong Kong, and I've actually just got back from Thailand. Fascinating.
DevCon. How was that?
I didn't actually attend DevCon.
You were just there for holiday?
I'd come off the back of strategic planning and team building with Bamboo in Bali. So we did that for 5 days and then popped over to Thailand and caught the first 2 business days, which are very similar to the blockchain week that we hold, where it's kind of the industry really comes together. I was really surprised. Their regulations are pretty good. Their barrier to entry is huge. Cost of a license over there is sort of 1.5 to 2.5 million Aussie equivalent. So there's only 9 exchange licenses and 12 broker licenses there. But what you have off the back of that is a whole heap of people operating in the grey. And for example, I met with the largest market maker who also runs an OTC desk, no licenses. And there was plenty of other examples like that over there. But I think that Southeast Asian marketplace is super exciting, and it's one that we've got eyes on. I should say as well, AlphaNode, which is an investment management and trustee business. Our business partners are up in Singapore, and so they have a trading team in Singapore, and they have a dev and tech team down in Vietnam. And so we get we're up there all the time, and just the exposure to that marketplace. It actually seems like from a fund management business, it seems like an easier place to gain investment. the Asian marketplaces are more open to crypto versus Australia. You kind of got to convince them that crypto is a good investment and then to invest with you. So
it's funny, like that's a really noticeable thing in crypto. The world feels a lot smaller in the crypto community throughout all of Asia, because you have, like, we had the guys from IMF on recently, and they were great fun, and they were, this is the thing that I guess a lot of people outside of the crypto world probably don't realise is that there's a whole economy. So they wanted to raise some funds for their project, and of course they raised it in crypto. And that makes the world a lot smaller because anyone who's accessible to the internet becomes part of your community potentially. And you've seen this with the success of the guys from some Nouns, for example. I mean, that's a global community, and they're killing it. And there's not one jurisdiction that they sort of are located in. They're located everywhere, and they've raised funds by selling NFTs, and anyone's got access to the internet now has access to to buy it. And it's the same thing within crypto scene generally now, is that there's you can have developers places, and you can.
Look, I think what you're touching on there is the network effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what most new people coming to the market to look at crypto for the first time don't actually understand is how you value these things. And they're not dissimilar to how you valued Google's and Facebook's before they were pre-revenue. It's all about network effect. Blockchains generate fees, and the broader the network, the more value it is. And I think that's where we've seen these communities around meme coins and like the NFTs you talk, they're really booming because there's a sense of belonging and there's a sense of purpose and meaning that's resonating with those who are investing. And they're out to make a buck as well. Of course. But there's more money spent on gambling and sports bet than there is on meme coins at the moment. Do you have
in your PA account? Do you have a few meme coins at the moment, Ben?
Yeah, I've got a couple, but we're actually have been. We'd actually made the decision to put a small allocation in our fund into meme coins, and we just missed the boat. And it might seem strange.
Some stuff.
Not peanut. No, we were just sticking to the top ones like Doge and SHIB. But look, you can't ignore them. Because they've got a purpose, and I think GameStop came about and had a place because it was a showing of people rebelling against the system. And I think that's what meme coins really represent. There are communities that are representing something, and they're really strong and feeling about that. They're also I don't know if you saw it, Token, when you were there. Murad got up and spoke about the meme coin supercycle.
I did actually. I did see that.
Fascinating, and I think he's hit a few points there. Everyone's post-COVID. Everyone's got this isolation, working from home. There's more depression and anxiety than ever. People, want to feel connected and community impact, and that's what he said meme coins represent. And the other really interesting point that he brought up was people don't understand the tech behind most crypto, and they get confused. And it's like, well, do I do something that's fun and it's got a community and that it's like a bit of sports betting and a bit of gambling, or do I try and research this tech? And if I think I've found something good after I've understood it, sometimes it doesn't move because it doesn't have the market makers behind it, or it doesn't have the right VC backing, or even if it does have the right VC backing, the VCs are selling. They're selling into the poor retail market that comes along because they've got early signals on things, and it's not as regulated as what the standard markets are. So I think retail investors are feeling disillusioned, and I think that's what's brought them. But you can't
monetizing cultural phenomena. Which is
exactly, But you can't ignore market cycles, and every market has a theme. We had ICO theme in 2017. We had DeFi summer. We've had NFT cycles. We've had layer 2 on Ethereum. I think layer 2 Bitcoin is going to come, but certainly AI, layer 2 Bitcoin and memes are a strong part of this cycle. And if they've pumped already, they're probably going to pump again. And unfortunately for Ethereum, I think it's looking pretty shaky. I think Ethereum brings a pretty solid part of the ecosystem, and it's probably got more network effect even than Bitcoin once you add the layer 2s and the TVLs and everything else in. but it's kind of almost got to a position where it's a little bit similar to Cosmos, where it's not attracting the same value in its token as it probably should. I think it's undervalued, but whether the market thinks that, because it's a lot driven on momentum and market sentiment, it could be the sleeper. It could come back at the last minute. Who knows?
We'll see.
Well, I think another one that people aren't talking about at the moment, I don't know if it's on your list, is the flippening of Solana and Binance Smart Chain, which has happened in the last week.
Yeah, right.
And it's gone without notice, and not a lot of people have jumped up and down. The stats are stark.
Okay.
Like Solana has such a push of meme coins sitting on at the moment. It's got the network effect, and it's riding the back of the latest trend. Binance Smart Chain, its TVLs are lower, its net transaction fees are lower, its users are lower. Like it is struggling, and Solana compared to Ethereum is getting up there. Ethereum's still the dominant chain, of course. But is Binance Smart Chain BNB overrated? And I think the challenge with BNB, for example, how do you value it, given that it's got the smart chain attached to it, but it's also got these other use cases such as payment on the exchange as well. So you kind of got, it's hard to really put a solid number on that. But if you just go by stats, Solana is absolutely deserves to be above Binance Smart Chain at the moment.
Yeah, right. Hey, you touched on something which is along the lines of looking at the tech versus the meme. I think it's the cultural aspect to it. It reminds me of something. I remember when everyone knows of Dogecoin, of course, and Elon's kind of taken on. It's just this thing that just keeps going, right? The original meme, I guess, meme coin. But when as we know, it's a fork of Litecoin or whatever, and I remember on Twitter, the guy who basically forked it and made it took Shibu Inu the dog and stuck it on there and called it Doge and let it off into the world. Someone took the effort of going, well, when you were creating this, were you thinking about like block size? Were you thinking about this, that? And he's like, mate,
just having fun.
He's like, it just took me 2 hours. I just let it off into the world. And you know what? It's probably it's a very, very successful meme coin. But it didn't have tech stack. It was just a copy. It was just the fact that it captured the imagination and went viral and people loved it, and it's built a community around.
And Elon Musk got behind it, and I think the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. I think I don't know where it could take the coin itself, because it's actually, again, we talked about it. It's the rebellion against the system, and Musk has come into the Trump government and helping out, cut shit out of the or cut costs out of the government over there. Is that a representation of what that meme coin actually stands for? and can the networking impact increase? And can that be infectious to other governments globally?
Imagine a world of government processes and government processes and whatnot are being built into a bunch of smart contracts on Doge.
It'd be
means it into
phenomenal.
existence.
So they need to nail layer 2 Bitcoin so they can get the smart contract functionality happening on it. And then once they got that, who knows? Well, look, Bitcoin is the first meme coin. The Chancellor bailout in the first block, that's what it's all about. It's a rebellion of the system, and is every other coin effectively some spin off of that there too?
Arguably, First video game you've ever played?
I can't even remember. I don't play many video games, and didn't as a kid.
What?
No.
Not even like...
No, didn't.
Sega Master System, Atari, something like that?
No, not really. I was a country boy, grew up on push bikes and playing basketball and surfing. So we played very little.
All right. Never played a video game. What's your Bitcoin all-time high price prediction for this cycle?
Great question. How long's the cycle? That's, I think, the first point. But I originally thought 150.
I'll go revising that?
Could be, yeah. But I'll stick with 150.
Okay. I think you did touch on this, but we've got to ask it. If you had to go all in on one meme coin, which one would you choose?
Probably Brett at the moment.
Brett?
Yeah.
All right.
Just because it's on base.
Okay.
I think it's Doge at 50 billion as a valuation. Wow. Like, is there much room to grow? But Brett is representing, the memes on base, and I think, there's a lot of potential over on that chain.
All right. Well, here we go. Does pineapple go on a pizza?
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%. I'm thinking, what is that, crypto related? No, it's not.
What future technology are you most excited about?
AI. AI and blockchain integration, actually. I think the ability to have personal agents on a blockchain that you can feed it your data, your personal data, and it's not going into a larger system. I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. In fact, I know I've talked about that before. I've had the guys from Vicara have talked about that. It's the same thing, and that's a token that everyone in the world's going to want. Yeah. Right. Imagine you owning your own data online, and you can sell if you want, but you get to choose. All right, we've got to get serious for a second. Hey, when hearing a pitch for funding, what's your biggest red flag that the project will fail?
A sort of random reach out from LinkedIn.
Okay.
Probably the number one.
Oh, all these people about to hit you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn's terrible. But look, I think I remember one pitch I had once spelt Ethereum wrong. That was a big red flag. I was like, do you really understand what you're getting into?
Did they put an F in there somewhere?
No, they had EA. I think it was EAM at the end.
Yeah.
It was. And I went back to them. I said, "No thanks," and you're misspelling.
Yeah.
and it was probably pretty kind of me to go back and say no thanks, to be honest, because you see so many. But look, we've done a little bit of VC stuff, but haven't done much for quite a few years. I'm really focused on the liquid space.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, what do you prefer, cats or dogs?
Dogs. 100%.
Who says cats?
I could kick a cat.
Yeah.
Dogs are a man's best friends. There you go.
People just like dogs better. Each cycle has a narrative, from DeFi to NFTs to memes. Other than the Trump pump, what is the narrative for this bull run?
It's a meme coin cycle, it's an AI cycle, and it's a layer 2 Bitcoin in a little way. But I think what's pumped now already will continue to pump, and I think that's Solana and the meme coins on Solana. I think it's Sui. I think it's Sai. I think it's Render and Nia.
Yeah, they're all killing. They're all pumping at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they're moving.
Yeah. What's your idea of the perfect holiday?
Beach, no phone reception, probably camping.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one can reach you on LinkedIn if you don't have a phone.
No, that's it. Yep. Definitely out of range. And it works well with kids as well. They actually enjoy putting their phones down and switching off. So
it's fascinating. I got the same thing with my kids. Like they always want to put the TV away, but when we lock it away, they never come. They never ask for it once it's gone.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What's a random fact that you can regurgitate at a moment's notice?
Jeepers. I don't know. No, pass. I got none.
No facts.
Sorry.
We can. Jared will add something in. It's just some Reddit thing about it. Okay, you're sleeping. Oh, geez, here we go. What have you stitched up with here? You're sleeping in your bed one night when suddenly an older, heavily scarred version of you bursts through a ball lightning portal and begins screaming, "Don't invest in Skynet coin!" Before fading away into nothing, do you take your own advice, or do you make an appointment with a shrink?
Take my own advice, 100%, because it's going to happen.
If someone went through the effort of coming back to tell you, they've obviously...
Is it Skynet coin or is it WorldCoin? That's one I would avoid. I hate the thought of people taking my personal data in any way.
Right.
And irises is crazy.
But also, you got to see yourself, a tough version of yourself. Yeah. Be like, geez, sometimes, you know, what you saw, if like Ben was harder, what would he look like?
You've been reading Reddit too much, haven't you? Have you seen the Bitcoin time traveler? No. Oh, there's a famous Reddit post about a guy who claims he's from the future, and that you've got to stop Bitcoin at all costs because it goes through the roof and it dominates. And this was back in 2014, I'm thinking. And he talks about all the events that are going to happen, over the sort of 20 to 30 years. I can't remember what year he came from, but no one's ever proved it wrong.
All right. Well, here, that's... I've got to keep moving. We could be stuck on that one forever. What's a guilty pleasure you're normally too embarrassed to share?
Wow. I'll tell you one thing I don't enjoy. I've never drunk coffee in my life.
What?
Yeah. And
things you learn.
Still, but I do enjoy.
Have you never tried it? Just smell it and just like, no, thank you.
No.
Not for me.
Never,
wow, in Australia, there you
go. Never need it to function either. And done a lot of late nights and all-nighters and never needed it. But I don't mind a mushroom drink. Right? and I'm not talking magic mushroom. I'm just talking like a good concoction of mushrooms with hot water.
Right.
Bit different.
Mushrooms always finds its way onto every episode. Somehow those mushrooms.
Yeah, well, you've been talking to the Vaccaro guys, clearly.
Well, Mark was... actually, I came with Mark. Funnily enough, you mentioned the Vaccaro guys. Mark, I came with Mark to your party. There you go. Yeah, because he knew eventually you were going to go on the topic of mushrooms. Well,
I'm excited to announce that this month we are launching a fund for Vaccaro for their feeder fund. So Alphanode's going to be acting as trustee, and it's going to allow Australian investors to invest in their Cayman-based investment fund in a seamless way under Australian jurisdiction. So
awesome.
That is literally got signed off the other day, and we'll be launching 1st of December.
Yeah, I've got to talk to Mark about the Trump thing. If you ever want to go down a wormhole, he's the guy to take you.
And if you ever want to go down meme coins, Mark is the man. Cheapest.
Absolutely is. Oh man, you got to get yourself in trouble with this. What's the best thing about Gen Z?
Oh, they're very smart. They're ADHD. I just got one on as a crypto analyst the other day, and woof, I don't know how we're going to control this guy.
Yeah, right.
But he is getting some awesome stats. Yep.
In fact, actually, that won't get you into trouble. That's a good thing. But with this one, what's the worst thing about Gen Z?
My kids are Gen Z. I love them. Nothing.
Can't take criticism? What's one trend you just can't get behind?
There's a lot of trends I can't get behind. I'm old. I'm older than I look. So I think you get stuck in your ways as you go. But I don't know. I don't keep up with any of that bullshit.
That's fine. Can't name a trend.
I'm a country boy, right? Grew up with a simple life. Didn't play computer games. Just got on with stuff. And my brother and I were given the freedom to go and make mistakes and challenge ourselves, and that's the way we've lived our lives.
Sounds like a good childhood.
Yeah.
Checkout chick or self-service registers?
Self-serve.
Self-serve.
Customer service has gone downhill. It's terrible.
Like I always use a self-register. I wouldn't know.
I got a taxi the other day instead of an Uber, and that was horrible also.
Really?
Just like taxi drivers don't care anymore. Because they don't get rated. But an Uber driver cares, and they'll have a conversation, and they'll give you a bottle of water, and they'll look after you, and they'll drive within the speed limits, and they'll keep their car clean. Yeah, right. But
watch out. There's Ben's going to bring in social credit scoring soon.
Oh, wouldn't that be good? What to think?
That's fine. Name a movie that deserves a remake.
Austin Powers.
Yes.
I think you can't remake that enough.
But you couldn't do that without... Could anyone replace Mike Myers?
Oh, surely you've got to find another Gen Z.
Someone
up and coming. Maybe Mike Myers has a wacky child, that wants to become a billionaire off crypto. Who knows?
Maybe. I love Austin Powers. How good is that? Has your kid seen Austin Powers?
No.
Do you reckon the humour translates?
But you know what? Actually, one movie I put them through the other day was The Castle.
Oh, how'd that go?
They loved it.
Yeah.
Because we've been using all the phrases just as every day, and all of a sudden the kids are, that's where you get it from. They loved it. They've watched it about 5 times.
They did.
So I'm glad I bought it instead of rented it, because now they're just going back.
That's funny, because there's a whole bunch of lines from The Castle that have just been commonly used these days, and I guess kids wouldn't know it. They're just sayings to the kids. But have the kids picked up anything?
Oh yes,
what they pick out?
Like the
so many good lines. Tell him he's dreaming, straight to the pool.
Tell him he's dreaming with the buy now kind of stuff. Like the vibe of the thing we use a lot.
The vibe, yeah.
So they get that. And my kids are 13 and 15. So when they get to that age, they start using stuff that you've said back at you. So when you've held them accountable for so many years, and then they start picking up on that, and they give it back to you with this stuff as well.
I love that stuff.
It makes for good dinner table conversation.
You never go out of that, because my whenever growing up and Dad had some rule I didn't agree with, he was like, well, my house, my rules, and like various things that I just do differently in our house. I love it when he comes over and I just tell him that. And he has no choice.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
Oh, well, this is me telling my dad, but my kids are 6 and 8 and 6.
Yeah,
so
okay.
We'll see what they come up with.
When they get to those teen years,
I wonder what things they're going to pick up on.
It's good fun. It's good fun. But I reckon you naturally get prepared for parenting as your kids grow. So you think, what's it like to have teenage kids when they're first born? You think that's going to be a disaster. But life prepares you. And when you get there, you go, this is pretty straightforward. This is easy. So so you'll experience it's good fun. See their personalities coming out.
I have to go back and watch that now. All right, well, last one. We've made it at the end of 20. Well, we're not done with questions, but for our rapid, not so rapid 25 questions.
Hey,
name a remake that never should have been done.
What's the? I can't even remember the name of it. What's the car one? The fast cars or
Fast and Furious?
Fast and Furious. Never got into that.
Never got into it. That was a remake. That was a series.
One was enough.
Just
series.
Yes.
I don't know.
Oh, that just named something that should never exist. Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious.
Sorry, Vin Diesel. I'm sure he's a big fan of the show.
Same storyline over and over. Like, you don't need it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, done. Thank you, Jared, for those 20 questions. Got to get back into it. Hey, there's heaps of stuff in there you've got to touch on there. I know, like, I'd love to see the heavily tattered version of Ben come back from the future who's had to fight off World War III. That'd be amazing. Like, what kind of
what kind of tattoos am I going to get? There won't be my private keys to start with. I've only got one tattoo that I'd like to get. I haven't got a tattoo.
Oh, here we go. All right.
So I've got a 6th generation Australian. 2 generations fought in the war. I'd love to get the Anzac on the chest.
All right, on the chest. There we go.
They sacrificed. Actually, on that, I'll tell you a story. So we've just come back from Bali, and it was the first time we got the global team together for bamboo. So we've got America, both sides of Australia, the Philippines. We didn't get the Nepalese over, but we will next time. And we had the Ukraine team. And the Ukraine team, at the moment, the two ladies live in Ukraine. They were able to leave. Men aren't able to leave. But the guy who came, he's actually fled already, and he's in Poland, right? But going back to when the war started, we've got a dev team over there, and we were concerned about what the war would mean for our business and for the continuation of not only the safety of our staff, but the continuation of our services. And they said, look, we've got contingency plans. If the war starts, we'll move the team to Poland. We've got a building there. We've got Wi-Fi all set up. It's going to be an easy transition. They were 6 hours from the border. Said it's going to be straightforward. So the war kicks off, and we had a meeting with them, and we said, okay, so now the war's started. What's the plans? And we had a product manager at the time. Her name's Badana, and she looked at us straight down the screen. Didn't stop. Didn't blink. And she said, "Our grandfathers fought for this land, and our grandfathers' grandfathers fought for this land. Our generation's not going to give it up."
Right.
It was chilling. And so they're there. They're still there, and they're fighting.
It's
huge.
Bloody difficult.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's
a bit upset.
It's pretty confronting. I mean, that's the reality that they're facing.
Yeah.
They're going, Jesus, this is something people have fought, and families have been disrupted, and lives have been ended because of. And even still now, like one of the ladies, her husband, she got married 3 months ago. Her husband's just been pulled off to the front line with no notice. Went to a monthly checkup and said, "Sorry, you're not going home."
You can go and get your personal belongings, 30 minutes, say goodbyes, you're done. The other one, every day they are checking their phone, WhatsApp, right? Because there's scouts looking for young men, and they are pulling them off public transport and sending them to the front line. So they've got these WhatsApp channels that they're checking before they go to work. Can you imagine that, coming to work every day, and you've got to change your detour knowing that your government could take you? And I mean, I don't have a fighting bone in my body, but if I had to, I would. But these guys are going about their everyday lives, and all of a sudden, you know, one instance they said there was 8 guys yanking a guy off a bus to take him to the front line.
Just unbelievable.
You know,
it's just it's horrible. It's just horrible to hear,
Yeah.
and you just hope that they can get a solution and bring peace straight away.
Oh, totally. Yeah, but who knows? Who knows? Trump's promised big things, so we'll see. But that's a part of having global business, right? You deal with you know, different cultures, different pressures. You know, connecting with people online is a challenge as well, but there's an art to it, to making them a part of your team as well. So
yeah. That's right. Well, how many sort of businesses are you? I mean, Bamboo's. You're still involved heavily there. How many businesses are you working with at the moment?
Yeah, just the 2. So Bamboo is a non-executive director, and so I've been non-exec director since 2020. There, we were shareholders initially, and they ran out of money, and they were going to close the business, and we recapitalised the business, and they stayed on for a minor shareholding, and we recapitalised, got Blake in. Blake's done a great job building the team with Tracy. So that's that business, which is going really well.
That's great.
And then so that's really retail side, and then the wholesale side is Alphanode and what we're doing there. So
amazing.
With wholesale funds, we've got 2 funds, a long only and a market neutral. And we've got some pretty exciting things that we're working on for launching next year, which will expand that product range. And we're really excited by the you know, ASIC's digital asset facility license being and holding 2 AFSLs at the moment. We know the space well. We can see the opportunities and see what this means. And I think distribution's a big key in Australia. Like, if we can solve the distribution issue with insurance, then we can get good rollout, but there's a lot of work to be done to get there. So
Blake and Tracy in tonight. We'll see
them
at the back.
Yeah. Trace flew in. She's flying in at the moment. Blake came a couple of days ago. So they're pretty excited.
With Perth, and so Perth's actually, we Independent Reserve is we want to get over to Perth more, because you guys have got a great scene going over there, and it was great. Again, going back to your party in Singapore, there was a bunch of guys from Perth there, and I was like, oh wow, it seems to be a good vibe, and there's some other businesses, not just yours, over there that seem to be doing really well. So we certainly want to get over there and spend some more time with the guys. But tell us more about that, because like I said, it seems to be a good vibe over there. It seems to be a bit of energy.
I think, look, Power Ledger was a big part of the start. You know, did a successful ICO in 2017, raised 34 mil. And I think that sort of generated a bit of a buzz, and they sponsored a bit. And then you had Digital X, of course. So when Lee Travers was running Digital X, and you know, the base is still there, and it's still on Kings Park Road in West Perth, but a small team there now, and certainly not the leadership group. So I think the combination of those 2 really, you know, started it well. But you've got a few fund operators. You know, Block Square is a property real world asset group there. There's a few others kicking around, but and this surprisingly, I was on a it was Index Co-op, which is I should say as well, being in this space, if you truly believe in this space, you're thinking about tomorrow, and if you're centralised now, you need to be thinking about being decentralised in the future. And so we're constantly thinking about how we position ourselves and start investing in building that decentralised technology around funds, for example. So I was looking at Index Co-op. Turns out one of the developers is in Perth.
Right.
But for the life of me, to get a sit down with that person was impossible, and I still haven't, because some of these developers, they don't want to leave their screen. So that's the personality, and that's fine. But it's a thriving community. I think you know, the Decker Awards tonight is exciting, and I've given this feedback to Decker as well, and happy to go on record. But we need to have an association that's national. They don't. They've been over once. Simon Callaghan came over once for a breakfast, but we need, if we're truly a national organisation, WA needs to be included. And Mark Momford over at AusDefi is doing a fantastic job at that. He's got his AusDefi meetups around the country. He comes over 4 or 5 times a year, and even when he's not there, he'll send a video and give an update and keep the community connected, and that's all it takes. Just to keep building that. But Dr. Andres from UWA is doing a great job building a Web3 conference at the moment, and he's doing that, instead of doing that with the East Coast, he's actually doing it with the Singapore Monetary Association and a lot of Singapore groups like Global FinTech Institute, for example. And it's pretty sad when we're going north to another country rather than going east to Sydney and Melbourne to bring, to have that connection. I think there's a real space there. You mentioned before I was in the fitness industry years ago, and I sat on the board of Fitness Australia for 4 years, and I was the West Australian representative, and it really it brought that together. Like it brought the industry together, knowing that everybody was being represented from each state, and I think something needs to happen from DECA as well.
Oh, you got a chance tonight? Chew Amy's ear off.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, look, but look, I mean, I come over for as many events as I can, 4 to 6 times a year in Sydney, and try and get amongst it. So, but it's not as easy as like a quick 1 hour Melbourne to Sydney trip. So
it's Perth's a long way. I've got to get over there. So put it on the travel calendar for 2005. All right. Well, we can't let you go then before we talk about funds, because that's obviously something you do a lot of work in. What's the state of play with that in the market at the moment?
Yeah, it's evolving, and it's evolving in a positive way. So we set up our first fund in 2017, and at the time, the challenge was to convince a trustee a licensed trustee to actually, have us underneath them and take that risk, because you can't get insurance for it. And so you've got to manage the risks differently. And I think as well, having built all sorts of funds, property, VC, global equities, debt funds, there's a lot of structure that's existing in TradFi that doesn't exist, and it's certainly evolved. It didn't exist back then, particularly around the custody of assets. Like, these are flighty assets, and there's an immense amount of trust that gets placed in those that are running funds. And so that's evolved. I'm excited to see where the digital asset facility license goes. I'm excited to see who gets the license and who takes on a custody piece, because I think that'll evolve the sector greatly. It's still only wholesale. Jeff Yu with his monochrome Bitcoin ETF and Digital X with theirs as well. They've had to go and get insurance. I have no doubt that they're loss-making vehicles at the moment, and will be for some time until they get significant AUM. They're not getting the AUM like the VanEck and BlackRock ETFs are, and it's got to come back to this infrastructure piece. So if we can get that infrastructure cost effective, and then we can get the insurance overlay, and we can get, I think that comes with volume, right? The insurance industry will come in. So if we can get that across the line, then I think you'll get more crypto retail funds in the marketplace. But I'll tell you what, it's been a wild journey, and there's been a lot to learn, and a lot of nuances, and you pick up little things, and you'd know this from being in the industry for a while. You don't actually realise how much you know until someone starts asking you.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And particularly, and you realise, you start speaking to somebody who's green, and it's quite stark, and you're like, okay, I was there. That's where I was 7-8 years ago. And you build that knowledge base from there. So
I can still remember my very, very first week that I started with Independent Reserve, and I had been researching Bitcoin and looking into it, and thought I knew a little bit. And I remember my first week, and I heard a conversation with Lasanka, one of our co-founders, and another staff member at the time, and I remember going, they are speaking another language.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I had a steep learning curve, and I remember that steep learning curve. It was like going back to uni.
Yeah.
And now everything makes sense, but I have to be conscious that there was a time when it was a foreign language.
Yeah.
And like we pointed out a few times before, we're still talking to people who can't speak the language.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And you go, but it's so, can't you see all the things we can see, all the applications and all the stuff that's going on there? They're like, I can't even understand what you're saying.
And to be honest, that's the art of success, right? Right there is, how do you summarise something complex to something simple, and get somebody to understand? Because it's not about saying something complicated and positioning yourself, as superior. It's about making sure your message gets across. And I think not a lot of people. More people need to do it, right? More people need to talk simply to get people from that starting level to get them up the ladder for their journey as well.
Yeah.
But look, I've even met with very experienced fund managers who've had TradFi funds for years, and they're looking to move into crypto, and they've been floored by the shift and the knowledge gap that you have to have when going between the two, and predominantly that's around custody and insurance and managing risk, because AFSLs and funds, they're a risk management game. So you've got to understand where the risks are, how you're mitigating them, how you're going to manage them, because when you don't have a safety net like insurance, it's all on you. It's your house at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So, and trust is everything, and reputation is everything as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. We talk again. It's a point we sort of come back to a lot. There's still a lot that the crypto world and we were talking about some meme coins in the office the other day, and there's a bunch of stuff happening on Stacks, and I was like, okay, I don't have a Stacks wallet. I don't know which DEX I would use to get that, but I knew the pieces, and from experience, I could be like, okay, I know I need to get a wallet. I know I need to find a DEX. I need to go buy these whatever meme coin was being, some obscure thing that you're going to put $10 on and just have 100 X's or whatever, right? 1,000 X's, but to get to the level of knowledge, we go, okay, I know how to navigate to that. I mean, I think of the first time I tried to set up my own wallet and use a DEX or something like that and connect a wallet. It's like there's a lot to that.
Yep.
And as far as we've come from, I guess the early sort of buying Bitcoin, where people we've seen with people who've built their own nodes and stuff like that, and they're built their own wallets with their own sort of dodgy code and stuff like this, and you kind of felt like in the early days you need to have that knowledge. Now it's come so much further, but there's still a big gap. Right, there's still a big gap, even for do you know what I'm trying to say?
100%. And I think
still have distance to go to make it like button mash, and I can buy anything, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah. So when you're using your own personal investment PA, right, making an investment decision is a lot easier because your risk tolerance is higher. And a great example is buying a coin, Stacks. How do I store it, right? And a lot of people go, oh, I'll buy it on the exchange. I'll just leave it there, right? When you're running a fund, you're not leaving money on the exchange, not leaving coins at all. And so, whilst you do your fundamental analysis and your research coin, and go, yep, this is what I want to buy. This is the percentage of the portfolio we can rebalance. Then you've got to go, well, does the current custody infrastructure actually allow me to hold that coin? And we've had plenty of times where we've gone, no, and it's super frustrating. And so then we lean back on the custodians or the underlying software that we're using and say, can you get this upgraded? And they go, oh, if we've got enough demand, we'll do that. But that takes time, right? And sometimes you can miss the mark on that. It's challenging. I appreciate it.
We had the conversation with the guys from IMF, and they had an interesting view. It's kind of like, do we need to bridge the gap, or we just need to kind of wait till everyone works their way across? Yeah. I'm kind of like, there's two sides to that, and one is that his view is like eventually the people who don't get it will be dead.
Yeah.
That's probably true. And in the meantime, your kids and my kids will grow up, and they'll natively go, well, I already know how to do everything. So, they'll naturally cross this side of the bridge.
Yep.
And so the people who are left, it's kind of like, well, actually, we don't need to come to you anymore. You need to come to us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but maybe you should go, keep doing these ones until we kind of get there.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but there's definitely two schools of thought.
It's a combination of both, really. But you're right. Maybe the full adoption of crypto comes when, a couple of generations pass away. and life goes on. My mum owns Bitcoin. She owns Ethereum.
Yeah, my parents are happy to buy some.
She was convinced in 2017 to buy some.
Good on her.
And she's done well, but she's a buy and hold. But she doesn't hold the assets. So my brother and I share that and hold that for her. But otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to get in, right? She would have been confused and all the rest of it. So yeah.
I guess we're going to see more. We do the Independent Reserve does the annual crypto index that we publish each year, and we've been tracking it now. So we've got hundreds of thousands of data points throughout the years. So we've been able to see the trends, and the one I look at amongst all the ones is the age of people, respondents that have it.
Yes.
And there's a huge bulge around obviously the 18 to say 40 group.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, it's like more than a third of people say they've held some crypto, which is huge, right?
Yes.
That's increasing. And then it really tails off into the above, once you get into sort of 65 plus, gets down to really small, a couple percent kind of thing. But there's that group of sort of that 40 to 55, which is really starting to swell, right? You know what I mean?
We've got the stats on Bamboo on that as well. And that younger demographic is lower for us, but it's that 35 to 45 and 45 to 55. That's our main users.
Yeah,
so these are the people that look at crypto, they go, I get it, it's going to be a part of the future. I don't have time to work this out. And the average income is significant, like 100K plus a year for our users. So they're doing micro investing. They want a dollar cost average in. They're smart people, probably got some sort of, they've got a high paying career, yet they want to use something simple, but know they're getting looked after. So that's where that product sits.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get them more, but we need a product for everybody, right? We need something for the Gen Zs and something for the baby boomers.
Yeah. Okay. A quick question then. What do you think the differences are in those generations then in terms of what are they? You think it's is there a different what am I asking? Is there like a different element of crypto that's attracting both of them? Is it just like, for example, you're a baby boomer, is it mostly the Bitcoin, it's now a legitimate thing, you want the exposure for the investment, or is it the culture aspect for the Gen Z? What are you sort of seeing for those different generations?
I actually think that they're both seeing the same thing.
Are they both, everyone's just trying to make a quick buck, or is it?
Well, probably the younger generation's a bit more speculative, and it's probably a bit more ingrained. But the older generation have been through cycles, so they know what a cycle looks like. Particularly the stock and the property cycle for them has been extremely lucrative over their career, their lifespan so far. So they've done super well, right? And so they can see another cycle, and they can see this shift, and they also understand broadly economics. And I think they can see inflation and QE is deteriorating their retirement savings. I had a call from an investor yesterday. He's got a chunk of Bitcoin and he wants something else, but he's 1 year away off retirement. And he's like, I'm not sure what to do with my Bitcoin when I get there. And I said, well, hold still, mate, because when you get to retirement age, you want a yield, right? You don't want to. You're kind of looking for more capital preservation. And I said, mate, hold still. Layer 2 Bitcoin's coming. There might be a way that you can generate a yield in your self-managed super fund off the back of that Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And he's got a few. And so, that might generate might start at 2 to 4%, but it may go up from there as well. So
the prevalence of it, and we do a lot of work with advisors. And for the same reasons you mentioned before, for the fund issues, a lot of advisors, they're regulated, they can't talk about crypto, even if now they've gone from the point and going, hey, even if they personally like, hey, this thing's legit now, and maybe you want to start looking at allocation, they can't really say that because it's it's not in their approved product list, it's not on there, they've got no PI for it, and they don't want to be liable for it, so they kind of tends to be the engagement we have with advisors is pretty much it's kind of a client-led thing where the clients are reverse inquiring and the advisors going, well, look, if you're going to do it, make sure you speak to someone local and you can trust and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there are some people. Shout out to the Bitcoin advisor guys, Pete and Andy, and they're doing they've got a great business out there, and it's education predominantly, and they've obviously got demand because their business seems to be going really well.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's an area that's got to boom. Education has to boom over the next 3 to 5 years, particularly if AFSLs are coming in. So there's a requirement to be, constantly getting your CPD points. But this monitoring aspect of licenses and making sure everyone's up to date with education, that's a massive market that's needs to be filled.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, long may this pump continue then.
Yeah.
Who would have thought Donald Trump, the red wave? I've heard some people like describe it as, and the interesting crypto and digital assets. And
actually, before we finish up, Michael Saylor's just done a video called "The Red Wave," and it is an awesome presentation. Goes for about an hour, but it's one of the best presentations you'll see that he's given that talks about the impact of Trump and just broadly what Bitcoin is bringing to the market. I mean, I think he's the biggest shiller going, and he's got a big bag to shill.
He's got a big bag to shill. He's looked like an absolute genius. I mean, people laughed at him and everything he said. It's like he's like, well, look at me now.
Yeah. He's got a very clever business.
Good on him.
So,
it's been great for it. All right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up there. We'll see you tonight. It was not goodbye because we'll see you tonight, and then on the weekend.
Yep.
And then in Perth in 2025.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.